If you're like the rest of us and you're ready to light the path to abundance this month, you've come to the right place. One word of caution though, you want to make sure that you're avoiding illusion so that you don't end up at a dead end. What's up, beautiful? It's Lisa Roulette, and I'm here to help you heal, navigate your ascension journey, and create a life you love. If you haven't already downloaded the Spiritual Awakening Survival Guide, make sure you click on the links in the description of the video below and grab yours today. In this video, I'm going to share with you what our beloved Ascension Support Team has given us as direction for the month of April. In particular, they're asking us to look at this month's astrology as one of the most significant events that is occurring at this time is the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction, which only happens once every around 166 years. So it's a big time of energetic influence from these two planets that are conjunct, meaning their energies are melding together. So we want to be very mindful of what those energies are like, because remember, on our ascension journey, astrology is one of our greatest tools. As above, so below, as within, so without. Do not be intimidated by astrology. Even though I am not an official astrologer, if you just start to take interest in astrology, you will learn so much, not only about your individual journey and destiny, but the destiny of all of humanity, especially at this time. In today's video, I'm going to give you the 3 messages that our beloved Ascension Support Team sent for us this month. And then I'm also going to give you the reminder or tip that they gave us at the end of the video, so make sure you stay until the end. If you're new here, welcome. If after watching the video you dig my vibe, then definitely consider subscribing. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you once again for joining me. As a reminder, everyone is invited to join my text list and my newsletter list in order to keep in touch on this somewhat rocky journey that we're all on, which is our ascension path. It's really helpful to be part of a community where we're sharing our stories, we're sharing our tools, and we're helping each other advance along the ascension path. It's not easy, and there's power in numbers. So please, if you're interested in joining those lists, click on the description of the video below, and there'll be links to both my text list and my newsletter list. So let's dive into the messages that our beloved Ascension Support Team wants us to know this month, April 2022. The first message is that we light the path to abundance from within. It is not lit from without. A lot of people are looking for the light in maybe a shift in the global economy, or maybe a new job offer, or maybe a new lover, or just really sort of an overall sense of I am safe and I am grounded. But the real path to abundance is lit from within, and we light the path through our light body being. Now remember, abundance is just an excess of things. It is a lot of something, whether that to you means an excess of health and well-being, an excess of financial resources, an excess of love in your life. It just means more, right? And one of the things they want to remind us of is that more comes when we build our light body, which is synonymous with expanding our consciousness. Because we build our light body when we deliberately expand our consciousness. We take away light when we contract our consciousness. Now, what contracts our consciousness? Our consciousness is predominantly contracted from outside influences that lead us toward fear, but also inside influences that are coming from the traumas and dramas that are running on autopilot in our awareness. So we want to become increasingly mindful of what level of light we're embodying at any given time, because depending on what level of light we're embodying will depend on how well lit our path to abundance is. And right now we have the opportunity with the influences of Jupiter to expand our consciousness, to expand our light. So this is an intentional process, really trying to soak in that Jupiter energy and really committing intentionally to our expansion, and really committing intentionally to raising our frequency, sustaining higher and higher frequencies so that we can really build that light body and light our path to abundance. And keep in mind that as starseeds, empaths, and lightworkers on Earth at this time, our primary job is to reach higher and higher levels of consciousness and raise our frequency so that we can embody more light. Because what we do when we embody more light is we illuminate our future. We become the way showers toward the new earth. We begin to light the dawn through which we will all walk into the new earth, bearing in mind that the new earth isn't necessarily a different earth. It is an ascending earth, an earth that is existing at higher and higher dimensions. And the more of us who can build our light bodies through the expansion of consciousness and sustaining higher and higher frequencies over time, the more we will lift others into those higher levels of awareness that ultimately allow us to perceive a new earth. Now, what does a new earth look like? A new earth looks more like heaven than the sort of hellish earth that we live on now. And we're not living on a hellish earth because the earth itself lacks splendor, but we live on sort of a hellish earth right now because humanity collectively has not reached a level of consciousness to understand their purpose and their power. And of course, our purpose is creation. Just like the one source that created us, our purpose is to create. And the power that we use to create is our consciousness. It is our frequency. Consciousness creates. Really important to remember. And if you need a little assistance on that, go look at my channel trailer. I'll link it in the description of the video below. And also the Spiritual Awakening Survival Guide will help you out with remembering your purpose and your power. The second thing our beloved Ascension Support Team wants to know is to be very careful of the Neptune influence that could lead us to escapism and addiction. If you already struggle with addictions, you may find that your addictions are on the rise, and you want to be very mindful of that, using any healing modalities and mindfulness practices in order to not sink into the throes of addiction during this time. Remember, Jupiter is also here, so it's very expansive, so that could also expand the escapism and addiction. Now, one of the things that lead us to these illusions, right? Because the escapism and addiction are illusions. They are illusions of the separate nature that we think we're living in reality. And we don't want to go down that path because it leads us further and further away from the abundance that comes with God consciousness, that comes with unity awareness. So we want to be careful. And the way we exercise caution is in two ways. Number one is to literally cut ourselves off of any information that is driving us toward fear, that would force us to escape something or force us to use as an addiction to divert certain experiences. And the second way is to really become the gatekeepers of our minds. It's very hard right now to discern what's true and what's not true. I mean, right now you could go on Google, and for every article that you find that says coffee cures cancer, you can also find an article that says coffee causes cancer. So just being very mindful and discerning of what you're taking on as truth. If your truth embodies and it's aligned with fear, then it's actually not true, right? Because what is fear? Fear is false evidence appearing real. So you just want to become that gatekeeper of your mind and know that if you're going down the path of escapism or you're practicing or leaning into addiction, you are veering off the path of abundance. And that is a much darker path, right? We are trying to light the path to abundance. And if we practice escapism and our addictions, we are going to end up at that dead end in April where all of the positive things we were trying to manifest in abundance don't materialize. The third thing that they want us to know is that there's a lot hidden, not just in plain sight in our reality, but within us. The shadow, the inner child, the archetypes that play the roles that engage with the traumas and dramas in our life experiences. And we need to start to shed light on these so that we can ultimately heal them. Because remember, 99.9% of the ascension journey is emotional clearing. And we're being asked with the influences of both Neptune and Jupiter to rise into our spiritual nature on a more regular basis. These are very spiritual planets, and we want to make sure that we are vibing with that spiritual energy significantly more. Now, of course, on the ascension path and through our awakening, there are fundamental steps that we must master in order to progress toward healing things like the shadow, the inner child, and the archetypes that we play. And those fundamental steps are really being able to achieve longer and longer periods of stillness so that we can surrender fully to what is happening in the flood of consciousness, ultimately become the witness and the observer, and then discern which way to point our consciousness as creators of our experience. And while it is very simple, again, all laid out for you in the Spiritual Awakening Survival Guide, it is undescribably difficult. It takes mastery, and we really have to begin the process of mastery of those steps prior to effectively healing things like the shadow, inner child, and all of the archetypal roles that we play that really don't serve us. So just being mindful of your spiritual body, really exercising that spiritual body as often as possible. And of course, if you want me to do a video on any topics like the shadow, inner child, archetypes, let me know in the comments below, because the more you share with me about what you want to learn, the more I can share what I know as part of my experience in the healing journey and also on the ascension path. Okay, and finally, they left us with a tip. So as God consciousness continues to return to our planet, it is our responsibility to rise into it. Because remember, the ascension process is basically bringing our bio-spiritual energetic bodies into the physical body, right? It's almost like bringing the light down. Even though ascension would appear to be an upward movement, it is actually a descending movement. So as God consciousness continues to come onto our planet, we need to be responsible for assimilating to it. And to do that, we really have to spend time with what we know as God and intentionally develop our relationship with God, keeping in mind that we're not developing a relationship with some daddy in the sky. We're developing our relationship with our God-like self, with our divinity, with the fullness of who we are, the creators that we are, and the healers that we are. So really trying to spend time with our God, the way we perceive our God, and also asking it to develop within us, calling it forth intentionally. You can do this through prayer, you can do it through meditation, you can do it through journaling, but it is a time, especially with the spiritual nature of Neptune and Jupiter conjunct, we want to make sure that we are taking that spiritual power that we've been given by these planets becoming conjunct after somewhere around 166 years. We want to take this opportunity because this will not happen again in our lifetime. So this is a real pull in to our spirituality, a real pull into the meeting of our divinity. We want that higher mind to meet the lower mind, and ultimately, as we progress along our ascension path, what we're doing is we're taking the higher and the lower mind, the masculine and the feminine, we're balancing it all, and we're ultimately folding them into one. This is what we call polarity integration, which ultimately would heal the notion of duality and anything that is perceived as separate. So this is how we really come into unity consciousness and begin to operate from our godlike nature on behalf of the one. So when we operate on behalf of the one, we're also operating on behalf of all that is. So we're not just manifesting things for our own experiences, but we're manifesting things as to make the experience of the collective look more like heaven on earth, which again is very different than the manifested reality that we have now that looks sort of more like a hellish earth. So that was a lot of information. I know it took me a little while to get it and understand it, and I hope I did a good job in communicating it. If you have questions, by all means, always comment below. And of course, if you think this video would help someone, then definitely share it. Your likes are appreciated too, because it sparks the algorithm and lets YouTube know that you're digging the content. That's a wrap for this video, my friends. As always, stay in the luminosity of your beautiful light and never forget, you are loved.